Lojoyo sampo pagyo trashipa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe zeparche pande lame shabla solwadi Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Pakyuke kudan dagi alu Pakyuke sung Pakyuke tugdan dagi ye Tenyerme çıktı çingi alu Makyuke kudan dagi alu Makyuke tukdan dageyi Tenyerme çıktı çingi alo Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Swaha Sashi Pöge Chushi Meto Chan Rirav Lingshi Nide Gemba De Sangye Shindu Mikde Ulwarge Drugu Namda Shingla Chöpar Sho yidamang guru radna mindrala kam niryata yami. Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi. Dage jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar. Sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi. Dagi jinso gibe sonam ki rola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drupar sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo ya lhayi ke dan ludan nue jen ke trubudan da mi kirim dan truba kungi chanam chi zamba tam che ke do da ki che ten tam. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Esiste una frase
There's a phrase that I personally really like that says, nothing begins, nothing ends, everything transforms. A saying.
cercando di riflettere
And trying to reflect on that, on what that means. What does a beginning mean? What does ending mean? I was even thinking about this a long time ago. This thought comes to my mind of this glass, for example, and I ask myself, where's the beginning? Where's the birth of this glass? I could say, at a certain point, the sand was heated and the glass was created, and then the glass was given a form, and then we've attributed the name glass. And once this object took this form with these functions and characteristics, the glass was born, let's say, arose. Or if it breaks, it falls, or I take a hammer and I break it into many pieces, I can say that the glass has its existence is no longer there. But the water goes on, it's no longer in that container. And what about the pieces of glass? Do they still exist? They continue too. Everything continues. So when we say that um, nothing's created, nothing ends, it's transformed. So the sand is transformed, the form is transformed. So birth and death, the beginning, the end, are nothing other than concepts, like a photograph of a certain moment. And as long as it fits within that photograph, we say it's this, and no, when it doesn't, we say that thing doesn't exist anymore. But what happens is, I mean, the glass, once it's broken, we can say that the glass doesn't exist anymore once it's broken. But the parts of that glass continue. They've just been transformed, and in our lifetime, we're constantly we're made up of cycles of transformations, things that begin, things that transform into something else, things that end, and it's a normal way to be. But first of all, there's a fundamental concept at the basis, which is nothing begins and nothing ends. It just transforms, and there's always a story that comes before that, and there's always a story that goes after that. And in the meantime, what happens is it's a constant process of interaction and transformation. This is what happens in every moment. Among us, even with ourselves, there's the beginning of the day, the end of the day. We constantly have these processes of beginning and ending. But in the middle of all this, there's something that has begun and that continues, and that's why personally, the main question when we start something and we ask ourselves when something begins, something ends, it's not really the question as why did it end. The real question is why did it begin? But the real question is how was I able to transform in interacting with that? And also, what's the next cycle that is continuing? We don't exist in an autonomous way. And something that's important to see is that, generally speaking, who lives the present well lives the future well too. The one who doesn't live his present well, the future is difficult too. Maybe when I say it doesn't live well, but just the way one lives, maybe not the sensation of pain. In other words, what kind of habits does one have? How does one face things? Does one face things with hatred and resentment, with arrogance, and is not well? You can change the conditions in 1,000 different ways, round and round. Those habits continue. But luckily, nothing is eternal in the sense. At a certain point, there are moments where important changes can happen. But generally speaking, what happens is we have this tendency to keep these deeper habits. And at the same time, when we're able to create healthy habits, positive habits, if the external conditions are the best or the worst, um, we're going to be able to face these face them well. It's like someone who goes on a trip, for example. If someone, it would be hard for someone who's not well to go on vacation and be well. There can be a moment of the vacation where once it seems okay, but then after a while, what's the dynamic? And those habits come back. I mean, how many times have I asked the children, adolescents? I've asked them, have you ever seen any adults on vacation stressed out? Yes. Do they? Does it happen that maybe an adult is stressed out because of work? Yes, yes, yes. And then maybe also on vacation, also stressed? Yes. Well, the vacation is stressful or that person is stressed out? So even the children get it. So what happens is we we bring what we are where we go. And that's sure. And even when we're able to, on the other side, when we're well, when someone is someone's well at home, they're well when they feel good when they're on vacation. I mean, there are specific cases, but generally speaking, it's like this. And here, the importance, we should see the importance, how can I say, to take advantage of the opportunity of this present moment. In other words, take advantage of the opportunities that life brings us, generally speaking. I mean, here, this is where we have the opportunity to do something. As long as we stay in this dynamic of where we're waiting for to be well, we're waiting for this to happen, and that needs to happen. This needs to happen, that needs to happen. To be well, actually, something ends, another begins, and at the end of the day, that inner dynamic where we're not feeling well, that just keeps repeating itself. On the other side, when we find ourselves in a situation, the question is not if the situation is good or bad. The main question is, how can I live it in the best way possible? What can I learn from this? I remember that story of the meditator who ended up in prison.
Alla fine io riracconto le stesse storie.
At the end, I always tell the same stories. There are many people who've heard them many times, but anyway. This was the master of friends of mine, and when the Tibetans came to India in 1959, together with the Dalai Lama, there was enormous exodus of Tibetans. They left Tibet and got to India. And the Indian government gave two possibilities to those monks. They say, if you want to stay monks, go to the north of India, to Buksa. If you don't want to be monks and you want to work and earn money, you can join the military, or you can build roads. They gave them these two possibilities. And there are some who, some did that, and and many chose to become monks, and they were in the north of India in this place called Buksa. Thousands of monks together living here, and it was really difficult. Difficult situation. There wasn't enough food, etc. So one master of these friends decided to go on retreat, and so he left that place and he ended up in the mountains. He found a kind of cave in the middle of the very, very far, really perfect place, and they would bring him food every 6 months. And he was eating dry food little by little. He would eat it. And one day they came to bring him food and they couldn't find him anymore. And they saw his meditation place and everything was there. It's not that he had left that cave, that space. And they thought that he had been killed by a tiger or maybe a dangerous snake. I mean, it was a dangerous place. Anything could have happened. They were there for days waiting for him, but he didn't come back. So they went back to the monastery. They did all the pujas for the bardo, etc. They called his disciples, etc. After 2 years later, he arrives. What had happened? He had gone on a walk, and Indian military thought that he was a spy from Pakistan, and they took him and they took him to jail. They started asking questions. I don't imagine that they were very kind to him. He knew only Tibetan. I mean, they didn't have any common language between them among them. And then in the end, they put him in a cell. And he says at a certain point, he realized he was in this cell, and he realized that he's protected from the rain. They give him food twice a day. What an amazing opportunity. And he sits down to meditate and to continue his retreat that he was doing. After a year, they came and they said, "Okay, you can leave." And they opened the cell, but he didn't want to go. And they actually physically threw him out. And then he runs back inside, and a half day, inside, outside, inside, and they were trying to show him he can leave. But then he said no. He tries to explain to them that he hadn't finished his retreat. Leave me alone. I want to finish my retreat. And at the end, they gave him a place where he could stay, where he was no longer inside a closed cell. I mean, he could get up and leave anytime he wanted to. And he stayed there for another year. I imagine the scene in prison. I mean, in India anyway, but that they find this man in the cell who's meditating 14 plus hours a day every day, whether it's light or dark, whatever. So anyway, he comes back after he finished his retreat. He went back to the monastery and tells this story. This has always been an example for me. I mean, if this had happened to most of to any one of us, what would we have done? Would we have taken advantage of the situation to meditate? I don't think so, because often we don't take advantage to meditate in our comfortable home. But knowing how to take advantage of what happens is an amazing ability. And as long as we stay with this attitude of the way I live my life depends on what happens in life, we will keep waiting for something to happen, something else to happen. We're constantly waiting for conditions to arrive. Someone might say, "Oh, Lama, okay, but did you see what happened to me? Do you see what's happening to me? I know the life of many of you, and and there are there are difficult moments. There are sometimes people have very important problems and um, live them well. There's some people who really don't seem to have any important problems, but they live the small problems as if they're going through hell. But regardless of how we live this situation, we regardless of the situation, we have this situation to face. And the key very often is having the clarity and the strength to face the situation in the healthiest way possible and facing in a positive way that helps us transform that situation in a positive way instead of keeping an unhealthy dynamic. Also, because very often the way we live a certain situation is 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 really nothing other than a mirror showing us what we need to face. So when I'm able to learn from what's in front of me, that allows me also to overcome and transform a situation and not just drag it with me. The other day I read a concept that had me reflect. It was a contemporary philosopher in a book called No Things, or the non-things. It said that with the use of cell phones, with the use of these smartphones, through this screen, we have an access to the entire world, metaphorically speaking, and we have access to everything, anything we want. We can talk to people, to meet someone, to ask about anything, to see anything. This is a means to get anywhere. So it's an instrument that where we're in contact with the entire world, but the other doesn't exist because there's another that I can turn off and turn off whenever I want. We access the whole world as we want, when we want. So I have access to the whole world, but following my desires. And so our relationship becomes more and more self-referential, because even with the relationship with another person, when we have this instrument in between, there's a filter between us, and I can turn you off when I want. I can have you speak more quickly because I don't have time to listen to you speak slowly or normally. I can send you a message to not even meet you in conversation, because when we're with someone else, when we're with the other, which can also be an object or a situation, I need to adapt myself to the other, the person, the situation, this object, and it's extremely important. It's fundamental. But we often try to run away from any kind of confrontation or adapting to reality. If I can't have it the way I want it, when I want it, and choose that situation. I don't know if this is all clear. So we become beings that are just weaker and weaker, constantly weaker. More narcissistic one is, the weaker one is. One's happiness is more fragile. So our ability to know how to adapt to situations around us is fundamental, instead of trying to control those situations. This is absolutely fundamental.
E noi stiamo vivendo
And we're living in a way where more and more we're trying to find a safer and more protect context. And I'm not talking when I say secure, safe. I mean not safe from dangers. No, safe from the things that we don't like, things that bother us.
e alla fine
And at the end, we want to we want to be with others as objects of consumption. I want to see you when I want. I want to touch you when I want. I can relate with you when I want and how I want. And we become more and more fragile. And when things don't go as we want, we get into a space that really disturbs us, and we feel it.
uno degli effetti anche che
One effect that happens when we lose this ability to face the other or be with another, which doesn't mean to consume the other, use the other. One thing, let me repeat, one thing as I'm with you and I need to adapt myself to you. There are aspects that I like, aspects I don't want. There's this necessary game in this process of being together. Another thing is you are there, but I relate with you based on what I want, how I want it, and when I want it. When I relate to a situation with a person, with an object, based on what I want, when I want, and how I want it, what happens is that somehow it seems like it's protecting me from the world. It seems like I'm protecting myself. I'm not getting outside my comfort zone. But one important result that this brings is the fact that I don't really face anymore my own shadows. Because when we get out of our own comfort zone, we need to face our own shadows. This is what happens. And our shadows, our wounds, our unhealthy dynamics and unresolved inner experiences or things, when they're not faced, they will look for more and more ways to be seen. And it's one of the most important aspects of our life, being able to face our own shadows, to grow as a person, try to die a better person than the one who was born. These are one of the most important things in our lives.
La vita diventa significativa, ciò che dà senso alla vita.
So we go from looking for some kind of meaning in our life, maybe our family, our job, or maybe one's nation. But today, very often, what gives meaning to life is just having fun. That's it. And in this dynamic of having fun, the world exists. They are at my service because I want things the way I want them, how I want them, and when I want them. Then they're there for me to use. But the truth is that is unsustainable. What gives meaning to life actually is an inner process of evolution, where we're able little by little to grow, to develop more patience, to diminish our anger, to live situation in a healthier way. Oh, okay, what makes me suffer? There's this. I recognize that. Today, today I'm not able, today I am able to not suffer when that same thing happens. So that's wonderful. That shows growth. Um, Lama Ganchen would say, those who like to travel a lot, those who like to travel should stay home. Those who like to talk should be quiet. We need to get out of our comfort zone, create new habits to move something within us. It's important. So
è la cosa più che normale che la vita non è che ci porta, la vita è fatta.
So life is made of different situations. This is absolutely normal. Situations that take us outside our comfort zone. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a tremendous lot, tremendously.
Ed è interessante, no?
And it's interesting, very often,
Una delle prime cose che noi ci chiediamo è il perché.
one of the first things we ask ourselves is why? Why did this happen? Why like this? Why like that?
Io ho una risposta abbastanza coerente.
And I have an answer that's really quite coherent. I don't know you. In the sense, I mean, things come for an infinite number of causes and conditions. I'm not able to go there and point my finger at one number in this complex calculation. Why is the result 8? Oh, because there was that number. Well, what about all the other numbers and mathematical functions? So the truth is, I don't know. I really don't know.
Se te la devo dire tutta,
And
non mi importa.
And really, if I'm honest, if I have to say it all, I don't really care. In the sense is the idea of trying to understand something for which I do not have the ability or the means to understand that. And that day I find that answer that seems right. I'm just taking myself for a ride because I can't really know all of the reasons. I could say, okay, this makes sense. It's interesting. It's not that we want to have the answer. We want to feel that it makes sense, that we're somehow in control of the situation. I mean, it's this enormous illusion.
L'importante non
What's important is not the why, but how I'm living and how I'm facing this situation, how this is transforming me.
perché sia le situazioni
Because pleasurable situations and situations that make us suffer, a very bothersome or a little bit that make us suffer or make us suffer tremendously, regardless, we can live them well or we can live them badly. A very pleasurable situation can be lived where one creates a lot of attachment or jealousy is generated, and it can generate actually an unhealthy dynamic in front of a moment of pleasure. An unpleasant situation can be lived with a lot of resentment and anger. But at the same time, it's possible to live both pleasurable moments and difficult moments in a healthy way.
in generale
Generally speaking, in Tibetan too,
le persone, le situazioni, volendo possono essere divisi nella categoria
so we can divide people and experiences and friends and enemies. There's this game in the mind training teachings. It says that our enemies at the end of the day are our best friends, understood as difficult situations. But if we live it in the right way, they're experiences that make us grow. from the mouth of who loves you, sweet words don't come. This is a Tibetan saying. So very often, loving someone doesn't mean doing what that person wants to do or wants to hear. Often it's like that. But it means adapting to the needs, understanding the limits. And for me, something that's really important today, I wanted to talk about two themes. One was about cycles, that we it's no longer an era, but just this lifetime is made up of cycles, of beginnings and endings, and every moment is the beginning of something, the end of something else, and this is constant. So the question isn't why. Why am I living this? The question isn't when will it end? Because something else will begin. The main question is, how can I live this situation in the best way possible? And there's so much that we can do here. And our point of judgment, if something is good or bad, normally we use our sensation during the experience as a reference point. If our sensations are positive, we see it as something positive. If our sensations, our feelings are negative, we live it as something bad. But actually, if we can judge a situation even better, not based on our sensations, but based on the inner aspects that we're cultivating during this process. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an analogy. Physiotherapy, for example. Someone who has had a knee operation. So the physiotherapy to start walking again, is it pleasurable? I don't know if anyone here has had a knee operation. I don't think that it's pleasurable, physically pleasurable. But after 2 hours of physiotherapy and you're able to move 1 centimeter more, move your leg a little bit more, you feel satisfied. It's something that you want to continue. So there are things that if it went well, or so judging whether something went well or not is not based on the actual physical sensation. Very often, it's in our lifetime, it should be, it's not was it pleasurable or not, but am I a more stable person? Have I generated more awareness? How have I transformed myself along this process? And in most cases, there's never anything that's 100% one thing. And there are many situations that are very difficult, and we can learn positive things. We can grow, and there are some, we get a few scars too. But when we find ourselves in a situation when that sensation is negative, we want to resolve it. But there's the other main question: how am I facing this? How is this transforming me? How can I grow? What am I learning? Remembering that when I find myself in a situation with another that I'm not maybe living well, one reason why I'm not living that situation well is because I'm not able in that moment to live it well. And because that situation is touching parts of myself that are unresolved, parts of myself that that are unhealthy, my some kind of wound,
quello che non riesco a viverlo.
something that haven't resolved. So if we take the concept of a Buddha, for example, the Buddha, i- regardless of the situation, a Buddha is fine, and this doesn't mean that everything's marvelous. If you ask the Buddha if he were against war, of course, in if he were in the middle of a war, would he suffer in the same way that we would? No. There are things that there are things that are unhealthy, that are negatives, um, that generate suffering, and they should be stopped, they should be blocked, they should be healed. But the way we live something, it depends on us, on how we are. And that was the first point that I wanted to bring just quickly. Let's try every once in a while to come back to that point, which is how am I living the situation, more than asking the why. Try less to control life. Try try less to control situations, people, objects, as I want, how I want, and when I want. But try more to adapt myself to the world around me, and that'd be so helpful if we can do that. The relationship with another is important because it's through another that I can see and heal myself. When I close myself up to someone else, at the end of the day, I'm closing myself up to seeing myself, because the other is the best tool to see my own shadows, my limits, all the various aspects that come up with when we relate with others. And we need to be careful because the dynamics that we create in our daily life, they reflect on our life in general. So one object that is with us for so many hours, through which we relate to everything and every one, that dynamic will be reflected into every other thing. So first, before I was critical of the use of cell phone, and I saw another aspect that is really dark with the use of this object, that I'm just going to repeat it one more time. That the cell phone has this tendency, this way of keeping and increasing in a pathological way our narcissism and self-referential, and being self-referential. And what's crazy, this happens whether you're aware of it or not, whether you want it or not. And no one is invulnerable to this. I mean, being with someone else, it can be tiresome. Yes, but part of that fatigue, let's say, it brings so much. Instead, what do we do? Because it's a little bit, it takes effort, and so we relate to someone through this screen, and we turn on and turn off when we want, and now it's almost rude to call someone. You're supposed to send a message, but when I call, I need to face someone. I need to interact with someone else. If it's a message, okay, this is my need, I'm putting it there, and we don't have to be with the other person.
Io non so
I don't know how aware, I don't know how aware we are of the levels of damage that this is doing. And it's, for me, it's I find it absolutely, it's frightening. We should all be afraid of this
perché
because the world in which,
l'essere umano già di base è un po' narcisista.
I mean, the human being is already a little narcissistic and self-referential. This is already part of our basis. But where there's a tool that increases and makes this absolutely normal for everyone, this brings us to a normalcy where we see, even on a political level, the rule, we see this also on a political level. What matters is only what I want. If I can do it, then I go for it. There are no more rules. And this is a reflection of what we live in our own daily life on so many levels. We need to try in our life to diminish this digital part of our lives and sit with others, touch, see, watch, listen, listen to a smell, be close. There are moments where there are difficulties, where we need to, or a moment where someone needs something, and it's important to do this. We become more and more agile in doing this. Otherwise, we just become more and more closed in ourselves, and then we'll be more alone because without facing and interacting with others, then we're not even able to see ourselves. That part that we want to be seen from others, we're not even able to see it ourselves. So
La nostra vita è una vita solitaria.
Our life, we live our lives alone. No one can live our lives for us, but it's a life that should be lived with company. It's interacting with others that allows us to grow, to learn, to see. There are times where the others bring out the most amazing, of the most beautiful parts of ourselves that we didn't even know that we had, and the opposite is true too, where others bring out the worst in us. And there, where we can face and whether they bring out the best or the worst in us, we have the opportunity to face ourselves. So the other is fundamental. So obviously we're not going to talk about it now, but there's a part in Buddhist teachings that talks about why we should be grateful to others. And one of the principal reasons for that is not because others help us and are kind to us and they're, they make food for us and I can breathe because the whales are pooping, but that too. But without others, I don't have the means to come into contact with the most beautiful part of myself. Without another, I don't have the means to get out of my own cycle of suffering. Without another, there's no love, there's no compassion, there's no generosity, there's no patience, there's no gratitude. And it's with the relationship with another and facing another, that it's through that allows me to come into contact with the most beautiful parts of myself that are so good for me. It's said that along our spiritual path, if we were to put on a scale the good that we receive from all the Buddhas on one side, so all the Buddhas, the Guru, all the marvelous sacred things on one side, and the sentient beings on the other side of the scale, so the other in this sense, we put on a scale, and which one weighs more? Just imagine we have the Buddha and our Guru on one side, and and the people that we know, and even those with the ones that we have problems with. Who do we feel spontaneously? Who do we have more gratitude for? Oh, my Guru, my Guru. Oh, forget the others. You can't even compare. Actually, they have the same weight. We cannot, we don't have the means to face our shadows, develop our qualities without without others. Even if you close yourself in a cave, you're there reciting and generating the mind. May all beings be happy. It's not that you're closed in a cave. You don't say, "Oh, finally, I'm alone. No one else exists." That's not what you do. One meditates. The light rays go to all the beings, and then they come back. There's always this relationship with others. It's always through the others that we can develop these beautiful minds. But that's why we need to be present. We need to experience this. So I invite you to observe how real it is or not in your life that an object like the cell phone creates this kind of barrier between us and others, where the other becomes an object to use, that I access when I want, how I want, and I don't have that. And I'm not able to face them, actually. Facing them becomes more and more difficult. And instead, this kind of interaction is something we need so much. In the middle of all of this, we have the great fortune to have the Dharma. Among being other things, it's also the means that gives us the support to live in a healthy way our relationship with others. It's what allows us to live in a healthy way, birth, death, and the transformation of every situation, as we said at the beginning, where we can really take advantage of a situation that we're living in a positive way. I mean, it's the Dharma that gives us an answer for anything. If someone says, "Oh, Lama, how can I take this very difficult situation that I'm living? How can I transform it into something positive?" Okay, practice the Dharma. It's my answer, which doesn't mean recite mantras. It's much deeper than that. How can I transform a moment of pleasure? Practice the Dharma. Look at the Lojong teachings. There are many many areas of the teachings. This is all is explained in detail. And so, just to conclude, let's try to not wait for the right conditions to come, to be well, to do this, that, and the other. Don't wait for vacation to be well, and then it's just not going to work like that. We need to be well in our lives and also on vacation. Okay. Which doesn't mean that vacations aren't necessary. No, the vacations are nice too, but we need to be well in our everyday life. So don't wait for the right moment. Let's try to live in the best way possible where we are and increase this contact we have with others as an opportunity with gratitude towards others. Because even not seeing others or not allowing ourselves this interaction with others, this increases also this attitude of victimization. What we need to do, the first thing we need to do for a sincere spiritual path, we need to stop victimizing ourselves.
Okay. Questo è tutto.
That's it.
Abbiamo I mezzi.
We have the means to do it well. We really do have these means called the Dharma that guides us. We have the blessings, we have the practices, we have so many marvelous tools. And we have this ability to use them, to put them into practice. So let's do the possible. Let's put all the energy that we have and to the best of our ability, and we'll be able to do so much. Okay.
Lame kutse rapten chi namkar tinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasum ki drowe munsela taktu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lamadan drame chiki pela longche chi Nimodele, tsendele. Kunchos. Trashishu. All'alba.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Have a wonderful day.